Greetings from LA, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And this is to let you know that right now on my Patreon page, I have uploaded a fan commentary track. This is a new commentary track that I've just made with regard to the James Bond film from 1979, which is Moonraker. So I sat down and I rewatched Moonraker for the upteenth time. I love that film to bits ever since I was a little boy, and I've watched it now. But this time I recorded my own commentary track as I watched the film again. So the full commentary track is available for Patreon paid subscribers on my Patreon page. So if you're interested, my dear friends, please go to my Patreon page and check it out. I hope you find it interesting. For anyone who's interested, I will also, right now, I will provide the first 20 minutes or so of the commentary track itself. So in case you're interested in what it is I have to say when I watched Moonraker, I have the entirety of the first 20 minutes, so you can check it out starting from the very beginning, so you can sync it up and watch it up to the 20th minute of the film, just to give you a little excerpt as to what kind of commentary track I've done. It's a fan commentary track. It's nothing special. I mean, it's far from being the greatest commentary track ever made. Far from it. There have been many other commentary tracks on Moonraker that are head and shoulders above anything I could ever hope to achieve. But what I've done is just talk about it, not from any historical vantage point, or I'm not talking about it from a making of perspective, production details perspective. I'm just talking about it as a fan and just watching the film again as a fan, enjoying the film again as a fan of the film. So I enjoyed it very much. And so if you're interested, I have, again, an excerpt of the first 20 minutes. So if you're interested, you can watch a little bit of the commentary track. And if you're interested to listen to the full commentary track, please go to my Patreon page and check it out there if you are interested. But and this is also a thank you to those who are currently Patreon subscribers. And I'm trying to give as much extra bonus content to my Patreon subscribers as possible. The other day, I uploaded a full fan commentary track on the film Dr. No, the James Bond film. And now today, I'm uploading a full commentary track, a fan commentary track on Moonraker. I'll try to do more of this if possible. I find it's a lot of fun to try to do stuff like this. I have spoken about Moonraker on this YouTube channel some time back in a live stream, but this time I'm doing it as a commentary track. So if you're interested to listen to the full commentary track, once again, please check out my Patreon page for information. It is available for Patreon paid subscribers. But if you want a little taste as to what to expect for this commentary track and others that I will make available on the Patreon page, the following is an excerpt, 20 minutes of what you can expect in terms of the fan commentary track that I just made for the film Moonraker. So I hope you enjoy, and until the next video, please continue to be happy and healthy and well, and keep on watching a lot of great movies. So thank you very much. And here is an excerpt, the first 20 minutes of the commentary track that I made for Moonraker. So thank you and cheers. Join in with me so we can align together. All right? Is everyone all set? So Moonraker is in the Blu-ray player. So I'm going to start. All right. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, so we've got the Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer Roaring Lion MGM logo here. Love it here. And so we're off and running. I am a big fan of this film, Moonraker. I've seen this film many times since I was a young boy. And so that's many years ago. And here is yet another time I'm going to watch it. And we're off and running with the John Barry horn heavy James Bond theme with a gun barrel. It's great. Roger Moore's James Bond. Look at those pants, by the way, and those huge trouser openings at the bottom there by his ankle. Those calf area is larger than his thigh, which is interesting. But in any event, yes, we're going to see a lot of 1979 trouser action. Note the heavy, baggy nature of the trousers as we go forward. And here we have the Moonraker shuttle atop an airplane. This always reminded me of the opening of Dr. Strangelove. If you know the Stanley Kubrick film Dr. Strangelove, it had in the opening credits there, they had a lot of airplanes hooking up with airplanes in mid-flight, kind of like a metaphor for sexual copulation. And I think this scene in Moonraker is right out of the playbook of Dr. Strangelove, military jet fighters standing in for sex and copulation. But oh well. And then here we have already some intrigue with two leather-jacketed people seemingly coming out of some square spaces in the airplane and then suddenly being able to board the Moonraker shuttle. Now, I wonder how they got past security. Security was pretty lax, or perhaps this is a little clue. You know, those people who saw this film in the theaters back in 1979 and were wondering, how the heck did security get so lax you'd have two random guys with leather jackets being able to stow away in boxes just to be able to open them up and totally hijack the Moonraker? Well, as we know, later on down the line, this is spoilers, by the way, so later on down the line, we'll know that Drax himself hijacked his own Moonraker. So those who were astute enough in 1979 to think that security was so lax might have gotten on the hint early on, saying perhaps security was so lax because Drax planned it all along. By the way, lax rhymes with Drax. And here we have James Bond on his last leg. And so, although the word leg, I think, has multiple meanings in this film and perhaps in the world of James Bond in general. That's another thing about this film, Moonraker, I think is really exciting. You have so many double entendres or triple entendres or quadruple entendres. Words mean many things in the world of James Bond. And that's basically my euphemistic way of saying there's a lot of sex in this film. A lot of sex. And so I guess par for the course in terms of James Bond, Roger Moore James Bond, especially 1970s, late 1970s Roger Moore James Bond. There's a lot of sex and baggy pants. And so let's watch the film Moonraker having that in mind. And hopefully, we can try to have a good time while we're at it. So here we have the beginnings of one of the most famous pre-title sequences. And I just want to take a quick moment to mention the pilot. You know, the pilot with his sunglasses and the cap and the mustache. You know, he's one of the most curious-looking pilots I've ever seen. And I think, if ever they made Moonraker action figures, I'd want to have an action figure of that pilot with the red and yellow parachute backpack to boot. I think it's just a really interesting look. And there we go. Look at this. They're in mid-air, and they're flying the pilot and James Bond. Look, as I mentioned before, those pants are just flying in the wind like crazy. There's a huge pants. And again, I think it's part of 1979 fashion with the large collars and the large ties and the large pants, trouser openings. Look at those pants. I mean, those pants are flying like crazy. Those are huge. It's a testament to the fact that we have a lot of bagginess, or perhaps purposefully applied bagginess in terms of the suits that we have, even in suits that you wear while you're flying without a parachute. And yes, one more. Oh gosh, the Wilhelm scream. And I like this. Kudos to this pilot, right? And he's waving in midair. It's like almost saying goodbye. You know, he's defeated, but he's screaming, but then he's saying goodbye. It's almost like the 5 stages of acceptance or grief. He reached stage 5, his stage 5 acceptance. He reached acceptance really quickly. You know, he accepted his fate and he waved goodbye. So kudos to that pilot. Not only is he debonair in looks and that cap and the mustache, he's very accepting in terms of his own psychological state of mind, even in death. So. But here we go. Yes. Now, in my talk, I apologize. I'm going all the way back and forth here. Jaws, the very famous Jaws here, and look at that. I love Jaws. It's one of my favorite characters, and he is also in midair, and he's going to try to pull it. But look at that. Jaws is too strong for his own good. Now he's going to run into a lot of hijinks. Jaws is now in terms even trying to flap his arms as though he's a bird, which is an interesting concept. I've never flown. I've never been like parachutes. I don't know. But if ever I were to do this in my real life, I'd probably want to try to flap my wings just to see if I could fly like Jaws, but maybe not. Who knows? In any event, here we have the opening credits, and we have, of course, the moving, spiraling torso of Jaws approaching us, and then we have a huge sort of silhouette close-up of Jaws' torso and groin to then welcome us into the world of Shirley Bassey and the really interesting. It's a great song. It's somewhat strange if you think about what the Moonraker is in terms of a space shuttle. In terms of the lyric, I'm not quite sure where it's going. Talking about where are you? You're like the Moonraker. So where are you? You're like a space shuttle. I'm searching for love, just like the Moonraker who's searching for gold. So I'm just like a space shuttle. So it's interesting. But maybe people who love space shuttles will really get a kick out of this. I don't want to take anything away from anyone who's fans of space shuttles in that capacity. But here we go. So I do want to say something. I'm a big fan of these opening title sequences. I really am. Maurice Binder's, it's iconic, right? But I must say that the Moonraker one is, when I was a kid, this really scared me. Some of the close-ups of the young women, the models who are here, some of the close-ups on their faces sometimes, I think they're meant to be alluring, and the close-ups on the eyes and the shadow and the mist. I think it's meant to be quite romantic and maybe mysterious. But for me, I don't know. Like here, there's a close-up of wavy, fiery hair with Michael G. Wilson's name there and director of photography. And then we have a close-up of these eyes. I think they're meant to be alluring, but then, I don't know, when I was a kid, they scared me. Some of these shots scared me. There's like a horror film. It almost remind me of Dario Argento film. I think it might be an interesting exercise to watch these titles and just keep the volume all the way down to 0, but then play some goblin music. Like, try watching these titles, but having the Suspiria theme playing over it and see how that feels. This feels like a real horror film in some areas, but in any event. Okay, now we have some tumbling, twirling or tumbling models. I think they're maybe in various degrees of half dressed or completely undressed. I'm not sure, but they're tumbling and tumbling a lot. Across the image of the moon. And I love here too that the music then isn't over. It still has enough time to give us a little bit of Q. Q is concerned. He's leaning on one chair and he decides to walk over to the other chair and lean on the other chair. I love that bit. Q is part of the Maurice Binder flying naked models slash somewhat Dario Argento Giallo-like opening titles. It's great. Q. Q is a really big part of Moonraker. It's nice to see Q. And look at those pants. I must say, again, those pants are just absolutely wild. They've got like a triangle bottom. That opening at the bottom of the pants is absolutely insane. I love it. Absolutely. And the ties, too. Those ties are large, by the base. But, okay. So we have here, of course, the wonderful briefing session, the quick repartee with Moneypenny, which is lovely as always, and then we have the briefing here, and among which Minister of Defense and M and Q opening this mirror thing to show the and I'm never sure how he opened it. He uses this stick and just touches the corner here. It looks like, I don't know if you can touch anywhere on the frame and it opens, or you have to touch that particular corner. If so, it seems like a really hard thing to do, to try to touch that thing with the stick there. It's a very small end, but he does it really well. And they described the wreckage of the plane, and they went through the wreckage with a fine-tooth comb, but they couldn't find any indication of the actual Moonraker space shuttle. So we have a mystery on our hands, my dear friend. But like many a James Bond film, we as viewers are ahead of the game. We know more than James Bond and and company at the moment, right? Because we know that the Moonraker shuttle was hijacked by a couple of leather jacketed people at the start of the film, but they don't, not yet. But so we're ahead of the game, at least for the time being. Now here we have. I'm sorry to just go back and forth here. James Bond has essentially ruined what could be a very expensive painting here. So I don't know. If I were M, I would be more angry than I would. You've just ruined my painting, 007. Are you going to? I'm going to take this out of your paycheck because you've got a dart in the painting there, and that's damage. I don't know. Why people aren't more upset about that, but it's the magic of movies. Oh, by the way, those darts. They have the red tipped, the red ones, which are the 5 armor piercing darts, and then the blue ones, which are the cyanide soaked darts. So you've got 5 and 5. And I always thought, why didn't they mix them? Why didn't they have armor piercing darts that were laced in cyanide? Why didn't you just have them all the same type? It's hard to think. If I were arming my wrist dart gun, I'd be hard pressed sometimes to think, oh, what should I go with today? Should I go with the armor piercing ones, or should I go with the cyanide tipped ones? It would be much easier if Q Branch had developed a one for all armor piercing darts that are also tipped with cyanide. Okay, so we have Corinne Dufour and the helicopter ride. So I think this is meant to, or perhaps, I'm not sure, maybe it's not meant to, but in any event, it does remind me of Naomi and the helicopter ride of Naomi in the earlier film, which is The Spy Who Loved Me. And so are we as viewers who are well aware of The Spy Who Loved Me, and we watch this young woman, Corinne Dufour, and who is obviously part of the group of Drax, are we meant to think that perhaps she might be a villain or a threat to Bond later on, maybe attacking with her helicopter later on? It could be an interesting, it's an interesting piece of suspense, I think, but we'll find out later that that is very, very far from what is going to be the case when you watch the film and the character of Corinne, which I think this is a great character. Really, really great character. I think Corinne Dufour is one of the standouts of this film, Moonraker. I mean, this is a film, Moonraker, with a lot of standouts. It's just a great film. I'm just going to be on the record here and say I love this film. I absolutely adore this film. Ever since I saw this as a little boy, broadcast on TV, and I saw it so many times ever since. It's really quite wonderful. And so, yes, we have, and just take a moment to enjoy that wide tie of Roger Moore. It's so wide, it's wonderful. And then the helicopter lands in front of the Drax residence. We're in California, France, California. And so we've got, the introduction, the soon-to-be introduction of what we understand will be our main villain, Hugo Drax. As led by Cavendish to the room where Drax is playing Chopin. And this is a very famous piece of classical music. It's really lovely. Incidentally, this piece of classical music also appears in a later film, I think around 1990, directed by Akira Kurosawa, which is called Dreams. I'd like to imagine that perhaps Kurosawa, one day in the theater in 1979, went to see this film, Moonraker, and he saw this scene. And he said, my goodness, I want to use this piece of music in a future film I'm going to direct. And lo and behold, 10 plus years later, he would direct Dreams, and the same piece of music would appear. But I'm 100% speculating here, my dear friends. But in any event, here we have the introduction of Mr. Drax. And note that when the camera panned around, he had his eyes closed. So he's kind of showing off there. Drax is, I can play this with my eyes closed. So, I can impress everyone by not just playing beautifully, but playing beautifully with my eyes closed. So what more could you ask in terms of a megalomaniacal villain in a James Bond movie? Who do you think in the other pantheon of James Bond villains could play Chopin with their eyes closed? I mean, I don't know. Goldfinger? I'm not sure. Zorin? I'm not sure. Gosh, who else? Maybe Le Chiffre? Maybe? I'm not sure. Drax? Oh, definitely, definitely. My goodness. I'd love to go to a Drax concert. I was speaking about a concert, with Sean Connery's James Bond. Dr. No, after he bangs the shoe with the tarantula, he has a great sense of rhythm, so he can be the drummer. And then Minnie Driver from GoldenEye can be the singer. I think Drax can be on the keyboard. That would be a really cool band. Yes, the famous "May I press you to a cucumber sandwich," and James Bond very conspicuously refuses to be pressed to a cucumber sandwich. So, but you can kind of look at the table and look at those sandwiches, and they don't look half bad, actually. They don't look half bad. I'm watching this movie, and it's almost dinner time, so I haven't eaten dinner yet. So actually, I'm hungry right now. So I'm looking at that plate of sandwiches, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, I wouldn't mind being pressed to those cucumber sandwiches. And Cha or Chang or Cha, standing over there. Who will provide one of the greatest moments in this film, and indeed one of the greatest moments, arguably, in any James Bond film, in my own personal humble opinion, as being a great, great hench person to the main villain, that is Hugo Drax. Now, just one thing here about, look at that. Oh, Cha, look at that. Look at that haircut. Gosh. I'm not going to make any jokes about the haircut. When I was younger, I had a haircut just like that, so I'm not going to make any jokes. Kind of looks like my uncle, actually. Cha looks like my uncle. I never thought about that before. All right, so now, and look at those pants again. The bottom part, they look like triangles. He's like walking triangles. Those are amazing, absolutely amazing. What it must have been like to go to your tailor in 1979, huh? Gosh. And here we have the introduction of Lois Chila's character, Holly Goodhead. That's great. Yes. I don't know how well this scene plays in 2024. It might seem somewhat sexist. Not seem it. It probably is sexist to a lot of people. But this is James Bond in 1979. So. In terms of what one makes of that as one watches this. So that's true for this Bond film. Is true for any film, arguably. You can just go with it and hopefully enjoy as much as possible. Now, a word about Dr. Goodhead, Holly Goodhead. This is interesting. Holly Goodhead. I love the name Holly Goodhead. When I was growing up, and I thought about the good word "goodhead," and I never knew, or I never associated with any kind of sexual connotations. Goodhead. I always thought of it like it sounded very much like Goodhead, Goodhead, Goddard. It sounded very much like Godard, and this was around the time when I was in high school. I had already seen this film many times, but I discovered the films of Jean-Luc Godard. And I thought, oh, goodness, wouldn't it have been interesting if Jean-Luc Godard, his last name wasn't Godard, but his last name was Goodhead, Jean-Luc Goodhead. And could you imagine the film discussions that could have been had, of the films of Jean-Luc Goodhead? What's your favorite Jean-Luc Goodhead film? Oh, Breathless or Weekend or Contempt or something. Oh, my favorite Goodhead film is probably Breathless, or maybe it's oh gosh, yeah. The films of Jean-Luc Goodhead. I'm kidding, my dear friends. I'm kidding. His name is Jean-Luc Godard, by the way.